We're still talking about electoral reforms, and this time around we're talking about it in the light of, well, not just the recommendations of the EU, but also that of the NDI and the IRI. We have with us Honorable Ogene Ego, who is a member of the People's Democratic Party and former member House Committee on Navy and Local Content. Honorable, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here once more.
I take it that you're a member of the 9th Assembly, aren't you?
I'm a member of the 9th Assembly.
Congratulations
yes,
to you on that.
Thank you very much.
Now, I want to ask you, I mean, looking at the electoral process and what just transpired in the 2019 elections, CSOs are saying this fell short of the expectations of many Nigerians. That's what specifically those were specifically the words of the NDI and the IRI in their own report. They said this did not meet the expectations of many Nigerians. You're a Nigerian. Yeah. Do you agree with them?
Yeah, I think I agree with them. You know, after the 2015 election,
yes,
we expected that the 2019 election would be a major improvement of 2015 election. And you will recall that we in the National Assembly made an attempt to amend the Electoral Act. And not only that, we've had budgeted for the amendment we're thinking about, which is electronic voting, to ensure that the card reader is more effective and to ensure that results are transmitted from the polling units down to the party headquarters at the state and at the national level immediately. In fact, provision was made for them to get smart tablets that will transmit the results immediately from polling units, from the World Collation Center to the LGA Collation Center, and then the constituency collation centers and the Ministerial collation centers, and the governorship case, House of Assembly collation centers, and then the governorship collation centers. And then the results will come out easily. Provision was made in the budget, and I think the money was released. And
remember, there was a huge controversy on that budget, and that the monies were not released on time. Even though, yes, the House says the money was released, the President says, I approved all the monies and I released everything to INEC. But isn't there a big question of what time was that money released?
Well, that is an issue between INEC and the Presidency, because it's the Presidency that releases the money. All we do is to appropriate, and we appropriated. We make sure that INEC does not have any problem with that election. Today, the court cases are going on issues, especially at the presidential level, because the cyber and other things that were supposed to be in that Amendment Act that we are provided for, you know, were not properly used. What we expected was that the presidency should have released the money in time. They are confident they released. INEC was supposed to have used that money well, so that at the polling units, you will have agents of the party. Then at the cyber end, you have the agents of the party. As they are releasing the result, various parties are supposed to be linked to it, so that a party can stay in their office and then collect the result. You
Some
know,
people are wondering.
that way, issues of going to court about the result of the fairness of the election would not have occurred.
Because, you know, there were huge criticisms about transparency in the collation of the results.
Of course.
But, you know, I think that only recently, one of the INEC national commissioners, Mr. Solomon Shoyebi, was talking to press people saying that we followed the Constitution, we followed the Electoral Act, and nowhere there was the use of server mentioned. I recall that in 2015 elections, even though INEC brought up innovations, some of these things were not admissible in the court of law. One of them was the card reader. Yeah. The Electoral Act, which was amended, was done in such a way that it could accommodate the innovation of the card reader. But then there are questions as to why don't we just go and the entire hog, so that we don't have this, you know, issue of controversy over whether or not INEC has a server or the INEC doesn't have a server, because it does seem that INEC is trying to shy away. We don't know why there's, you know, what the controversy is in court, and it's a matter already in court. I'm trying to be careful. But we do know that electronic voting is not in our laws, and it's one way that INEC is still trying to skirt around using electronic means without violating the law. What are your thoughts on that?
You know, it is surprising. By now, we should not be talking about election rigging or result of election being changed, you know, because we've been into this for a long time. It's just like electricity, which is an old technology. Up to now, we're still talking about, you know, factories, towns, houses not having light. These are technology you can buy from outside. Many countries in the world have been doing election India did their election, nobody complained. South Africa did their election, nobody complained. America does the election, Britain does the election. So the technology is out there that you can get to make sure that whatever election you conduct, the election is free and fair and satisfactory to all Nigerians. But why INEC is doing what they did, I don't know. And why the presidency refused to assent to that bill, I don't know. The bill was with them. I'm talking about the Electoral Act, the Electoral...
Did they provide for full electronic voting?
Of course he did. He did. The bill that was sent, it provided for that. And with that bill, we would not have had problem. Because if you try to manipulate the results after they came from the ward, from the polling unit, it would have been difficult because the tablet would have been able to capture the result in the polling unit and then send it to the national INEC office and at the state office. All the parties need to do is to have agents here too.
But part of the reason I remember that the president refused to assent to the bill was that it was too close to the elections.
Well, no, because we had envisaged that, and INEC had envisaged it, and INEC made requests for money for it in the appropriation, and we have approved it. And I'm sure the presidency was aware of that. It has been approved because...
It's not just about money, it's also about trying it out, the technology.
This is what I'm saying. INEC was aware before this Electoral Act came up. INEC was called, it was public hearing. INEC was part of it. So INEC was already making arrangements for it because they know that this law is going to come out before the election. It's not as if some group of people hid somewhere and then brought out a law. No, the law was brought out with suggestion from INEC. There was public hearing from them. We asked their views, and their views, their inputs were put into it.
Let's take questions from my colleagues in Lagos. Chairman?
Well, yeah, Honorable, I'd like to find out from you, because we saw the build-up to the elections, the emergence of the leadership of the 9th Assembly. There were some schools of thought who wanted that to be open ballot system. But yes, much as that may be history. But what is the thinking of some of your colleagues or the Assembly, if I may use that, in terms of when they vote on bills ordinarily on the floor of the House? Is it something, are they considering ensuring that the public, those who voted them in, know their history in terms of how they voted, what they voted for, just as a way of checking to ensure that they really and truly are representing their members? You have that system in the House, do you? And is the House thinking about ensuring that voting in some of those key bills is public?
Yeah, so far our rule book says voting should be secret voting, you know. So that's what we are doing. But I do agree with what you are saying, that there's need for members to be held accountable for their decision. For instance, when we had the bill that came out about restructuring of the country, about private, state police, etc., etc. So people voted against it, while some others voted for it. At least the constituency should be able to know that on this issue, this is how my rep voted. So I want to agree with you that there is need for accountability, there is need for openness. The way you voted should be an open page, so that those who voted for you will know whether you voted the right way or not. For instance, when we had the Southeast bill, just like we had the Northeast bill to compensate them for destruction that we had done during the Civil War, most of us voted for it, and it went through. Like if you come from a constituency where you have people that the bill will affect, you know, the people should be able to know if you voted for the bill or not. So I agree, and I think that in this 9th Assembly, some of us will be coming out with motions and bills to ensure that voting is more public. Now there's electronic voting. That I'm not too sure, but I'm sure the electronic voting can capture what and how people voted, you know. And I think that the public and the press should show a bit more interest as to the voting pattern, so that you can know the man who you are going to vote for, you are going to re-elect, or the man who's seeking re-election from you, you'll be able to know what he stands for in all base. For instance, we were just talking about yesterday, Biden was being queried because of the comments he made about blacks, you know, on issues of being called a boy or being called a man, etc., etc. People are able to track what happened several years ago, and then you can link the person's character to it. So I think that in this National Assembly, we will try to work towards making voting more public. But the Speaker has said that he's going to do a lot of innovation. And you know the Speaker is very, very experienced. I'm sure that these may be some of the innovations that Femi Gbajabiamila may bring on the table. When we resume on the 2nd of July from our recess, we'll be able to know what the exact package has. But I think the public needs to know about who and for what their members are voting for.
All right. Part of the matter you raised, if I could pick up on that, are they also thinking about it? Because when that voting concerning amending the Constitution for restructuring, which you highlighted in your submissions now, are they thinking about revisiting that at all, this particular 9th Assembly?
Oh, of course, we must revisit it. We must revisit. Don't forget that the restructuring bill, we lost it with just about 24 votes. Just 24 votes. And I believe that we lost it because some of the lawmakers were not well briefed on it at that time. I'm sure the bill comes again, it will pass. Take, for example, insecurity. You know, as at that time, insecurity was more in Bedway, Plateau Axis, and some areas in the south, southwest, southeast, where you have a lot of herdsmen creating problems. But today, the herdsmen are creating problems even in the president's state. And in the area where the president comes from, these herdsmen have been involved in kidnapping. And we can see all over the world, even in Mali, herdsmen are creating problems here, all over the place. So I'm sure that governors are now more concerned about the security. The governors from the north recently met with the president to discuss the issue of security in the area. So the issue is no more a regional issue, it's no more a state issue. I'm sure that if a new vote comes up today, everybody or majority would pass that state police should come in, you know. So we certainly must bring it up because the issue is still very germane.
All right.
If we don't have it, you find out that this country will not develop. I'll give you an example. Look at Zamfara State. If you look at social media, you will see gold that is being found just almost on the surface in Zamfara State. These are things that some companies in the world will mine even almost 100 meters down before they can get the gold. But there's so much of it in Nigeria. But it's not being harnessed. You can imagine if oil production was not being harnessed, there will be no federation account. Nigeria will not have any money to distribute to the various states of the federation. And those who produce the oil will not have 30% derivation. For instance, poor state. That state has no reason to be poor because there's so much gold. What they need to do is to set up a company like NNPC to harness the gold, give out licensing to both international and local companies who will bring resources to mine the gold.
All right.
And when they mine it, the state will get their 30%
Let me bring in one more item. A member told us here, he used to be a member, still a member of the APC, even while he was in the House. He did remind us that the Speaker, whilst he was then many years ago, not too long ago though, while they were considering this bill or the list from the President, the Ministerial list, he did suggest at the time that it would be a good thing to have portfolios attached to the names of the ministers who are to be screened so that the members will know what kind of questions and how the screening can go. Do you see or do you think that the House or the leadership will remind or will bring that back to the fore and advise the President to attach those portfolios so that they can know or make their jobs easier when it comes to screening those ministerial nominees in the National Assembly?
Yeah, you know, ministerial nominees are being screened by the Senate and not the House of Reps. But I agree entirely that portfolio should be attached. Because, for instance, if you bring a man who is not an engineer, to Ministry of Power, it will not help us. But we need somebody who has experience in electricity generation, so that when he comes in, he will be able to have a better grasp instead of coming in and then you keep briefing him and briefing him. It will take him a long time, over 6 months to learn. So I think I agree. Let's look for experts in various fields and bring them in. People who you don't need to train again. If we do that, you'll find out that electricity problem you can get it solved easily. Talking about railways, for instance, we need to bring people who have been involved in railway management. We have a lot of Nigerians who are abroad, who are holding top positions in various railway companies that are doing very well. You know, when you bring them in, of course, such people will be able to tackle the problem right from day one. So I think it's a good thing, and I would encourage the president to attach ministerial list to the day for screening, because that would enable the senators who are screening the minister to know the type of question to ask. If you don't attach ministerial list, then the question will...
Honorable, let me ask you this one, you know, just before we take a break. We've had cases in recent history where some members of the National Assembly say they can't go back home because for one reason or another. In fact, we've seen videos, and I'm sure you may have seen some yourself, of some of them being stoned, you know, as they escaped from their own constituencies. I just want to ask, is there any plan to have a kind of self-regulatory mechanism for members of the National Assembly so that their representation will reflect the desires and wishes of their constituents, so that they're always welcome back home? How do you think that can be worked?
Yeah, let me tell you, there are two things to it. There are some members who don't go home, they only go there during election. And when you do that, that is bad. You must continue to consult your party, consult your people, various associations within your constituency. That we do, so you can go home and not have problem. But there's another problem. Political enemies, you know, sometimes engineer what happens to some members. You know, the man may be popular, will do everything, but they can get area boys, they can get criminals that when he comes, show him, do this to him, so that he will look unpopular. This happens a lot. It's not political. But I think that on the whole, members need to serve their constituency, because it's the constituency that brought the member to the house. And members should also join their constituency, their representation, based on the job they are elected for. For instance, if you are elected as an honorable member in the house, you are a lawmaker. Your job is to make law, do oversight, and then appropriation. These are the jobs that you have. Nobody should expect a lawmaker to go and build a bridge that is beyond his capacity. He cannot build. Of course, we have constituency money. But as you know, some states like Lagos State, we have just 41 million naira for constituency project. While there are some states 300 million, some 250 million, some 100 million. That is because the size, the number of the Federal House of Rep members in such states is very low, because the equal amount is allocated to each state. So if your state have only 4 or 5 House of Rep members, that goes into their constituency. Whereas a state that has 24, like Lagos or Kano, have very little. So you may not have the resources to do some of those things. So constituents should know what is available, and they should know that even the constituency project, the quotas are awarded by the ministry. It's not, the cash is not given to the honorable member. So the honorable member does not, can only monitor projects that are awarded by the executive arm of government. So people should know the job of the constituent. What is the honorable member elected to do? Don't ask for more than what the honorable members watch him on television, watch him in the house. Is he making bills, laws that affect his constituency? Once he's doing that, he's doing the work that should be done. And sometimes, some people, instead of asking for things that will benefit the community, they'll be asking for money to pay children's school fees, pay for father's burial, remembrance, a host of...
well, they're constituents, and they can ask her whatever it is they want to ask for.
You can do that, but
Honorable, we have to take a break now. When we come back, I'm going to take you up a little on electoral violence, which is one of the areas that this report touched on. In a moment, please stay with us.
Thank you.
Honorable Ogene Ego is still our guest. He's a member of the People's Democratic Party and also a current member of the 9th Assembly. We're talking about electoral reforms. Honorable, electoral violence is one of the things, one of the areas that the recommendations also focused on. And they're saying that the role of security agencies should be redefined. What role do you see them playing in the elections?
Well, security agencies' presence in voting area is a good thing, because it deters those who want to create problems, who want to snatch ballot boxes, who want to tear the results, who want to attack those who are lining up to vote, you know. But government needs to train security people to ensure that electoral violence is cropped to the minimum. But one other thing that creates electoral violence is the fact that INEC in some cases are not fair. For instance, if you are supposed to, INEC is supposed to be on ground by 8 in the morning, you don't come by 8, you don't come by 12 or 1. And within 2 hours, you say the election is over. Many people are still lined up. Of course, the people will be angry, you know. And then again, when some parties who are losing the election bribe people to say, oh, go and attack, so that the results are not announced, this creates electoral violence. So it will require a lot of education. And security agencies who would come to ensure peace need to be trained and retrained. They should know that this country belongs to them.
Did you witness any in your own area? Electoral violence? In the
not in my area, but my neighboring local governments had. We were lucky that soldiers who were posted, you know, and the area command, we had a lot of meetings with them. And we told them, be fair to everybody. Wherever you have, let's have your phone number so that whenever there is electoral violence or any problem, we'll call you. And then I must commend the army.
So you engaged with the security agencies successfully ahead of the elections?
Yes, because...
Would you say that helped you?
Oh, that helped us. That helped us. That helped to ensure that there were a lot of areas where boys masked with the aim of disrupting the voting or the counting of the vote. And when we called the police, we called the area commander, and we advised him to call the soldiers, and they called the army, they went there, and there were no violence. In a lot of places, they say the army played a negative role. But in my constituency, they played a positive role. I must confess. The army did very well. Those who came to my constituency, I commend them. But in a lot of areas, like Ushodi Solon, which is my neighboring area, you see people physically going to carry the ballot box. And people were stoned, almost led to death. So electoral violence is a very bad thing. We need to educate Nigerians more about this democratic system. They should not allow politicians to use them. If the democratic system is smooth, it will make foreigners to have confidence in Nigeria. Foreign investors will come, jobs will come. But if you do election and then there's violence, the elections are marred by irregularities, those who want to come, they will not come. They will say there's no rule of law in such a country. So election goes beyond this man has won and this man has lost. If elections are good, it will pass on the life of the people and in their pockets. Those people who are area boys who cannot feed themselves, who have to be paid some money to go and do election violence. If elections are good and everybody obeys the law, and then foreigners, investment coming, even Nigeria put investment in the country because there's rule of law, and rule of law leads to economic resurgence and improvement. If that happens, even the area boys don't need anybody to give them money. There'll be jobs available for everybody.
Well, it's a good place to leave it. We have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Today this morning.
Thank you.
Honorable Ogene Ego is a member of the People's Democratic Party and also a member of the 9th Assembly. Yeah. Well, that's been Sunrise Today this morning, talking about electoral reforms and matters that also have to do with the National Broadcast Commission and its licensing regime, as one of the recommendations that came up with the EU Election Observer Mission. If you have any comments, please feel free to use the handles showing on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogunyuso.
Yes, indeed. I'm
Thank
Chamberlain.
you very much. I'm honored to be around.
I'm Chamberlain Assault.
And I'm Ayo Makine. We're asking you to have a productive day.
The views and opinions expressed by guests on this program are those of the maker and do not reflect the views, opinions, and endorsement of Channels Television.